So we're about a month from the Chicago Marathon, and at this point in time, I kind of do a self-assessment of the Chicago Marathon training at this time, and I'm just doing this as a follow-up to my Crystal Lake Half Marathon training, or race vlog, I guess you can say, as there were some expectations that were set at the beginning of the year that I'm thinking have not been met, and as a result, I'm questioning whether my Chicago Marathon is going to be in trouble. So before we get into it, make sure you follow me on Instagram, Strava, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're already subscribed and watching this content. Thanks so much, love you guys a lot. And yeah, just follow me on the social media, the links below for more updates. So without further ado, let's get into what I'm discussing here. So again, this is a follow-up to my Crystal Lake Half Marathon self-assessment where my half marathon PR was set last year at about an hour 26:30, so nothing spectacular, but in the grand scheme of running the sub 3 hour marathon, it's a pretty good time because if you were able to run 2 hour 26s, you'd be able to run, an hour 52, marathon essentially. So if my math is correct, I think that's incorrect. It might be an hour 54. Yeah, it's an hour 54. I'll get that correct. But anyways, I digress. Point here is that this past Sunday, I ran an hour 29:05, something like that, which isn't anything spectacular, but it's worth noting that I felt pretty beat up after this half marathon, whereas last year, after that half marathon, didn't feel nearly as beat up. And the results there are quite obvious as to why. I had more training volume and I had a better training plan last year that I followed more to the T than the training plan I kind of had set for this year and the amount of work I did. So a couple of things that play into that, right? So first and foremost, the things that were associated with last year's training that worked is a brand new environment, so had some time to basically settle in after having fibula stress reaction to my new environment, exploring Algonquin, Lake in the Hills, Crystal Lake, all these new areas in the suburb that I live in currently. And basically as a result, just having that exploration kind of helps some of the distance fly by. The caveat here is that running in the suburbs does get pretty fast. I was going to say it gets quick pretty quick, but it gets boring quickly and very fast. So there were some other things that kind of helped alleviate some of the boredom, like joining a run club, changing the environment, trying to go into the city every so often, and that really did help the training block. And then, of course, having a new unofficial coach for my training programs also definitely helped, and following that training program just helped kind of keep me aligned to my goals, which was to gradually build distance for 3 weeks. It's called the waterfall method, where you build a distance for 3 weeks, and then you have one easy week, build for 3, off 1 week, build for 3, etc., etc. So that would have been the right way to do my training plan for this year, and it worked really well last year. So I'll kind of give you an idea of why the waterfall method helped, right? So 2019, we'll use this as our reference point, right? My half marathon then was the Rock and Roll Half Marathon, and it was something like an hour 35 something, right? It was not a PR half marathon. I actually had a worse half marathon than in 2018 during the Chicago Marathon, if that kind of tells you anything. So this was like bad, right? And that would happen in the summer of 2019, and at that point, I had like a major chip on my shoulder. I said, okay, this half marathon is not going great. I've got like 3 months to get my act together. And by then, I ended up running my Chicago Marathon at 3 hours, 10 minutes, 20 seconds, which ended up being my PR. So I had this fire lit under my ass, basically, to get my things together to try to run this sub 3 hour marathon, and I missed it by about 10 minutes. But I felt awesome during the race, and I had a brand new pair of shoes, and it was a great day overall, okay? So that's kind of our theme here, is the chip on the shoulder in 2019's half marathon helped me get this. Now, in 2021, yeah, we'll do 21, how about that? I don't remember if a half marathon was done, but what I do know was that, this is like the end of the pandemic. I'm in like semi-decent shape because I was racing in Florida and training in Colorado, so I figured the marathon would go well, right? At this time, I let it loose, and I ran a 3:27.00, okay? 3:27 flat. So I lost a lot of time since my last official marathon, and as a result, I was real salty about this time because instead of progressing in a positive rate, I ended up degressing. So it almost felt like I hit a plateau with this race, right? However, this was not the case, right? Fast forward to 2022, where I ran the Crystal Lake half marathon at an hour 26:30, which was my PR now. I ended up running a 3:13 and change. I don't remember the exact seconds on it, but I did end up bouncing back on my time. Maybe it was like 7? Something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I ended up bouncing back from this marathon time. And I had a good half marathon to back it up about a month before. So, with all this in mind, the note here that kind of ends up being a theme is by the summertime, I'm going to have a pretty good idea of what the marathon is going to feel like. So, as we fast forward into 2023, my half marathon time right now is about an hour 29:05, which is not a PR, by the way. I would like to estimate that my marathon time overall, with my current fitness condition, if I'm not going to like light a fire under my ass right now, is going to be somewhere between these two times. I'm estimating about a 3:17 to 20 finish, which is not something I want to tell myself at this point in time, because the last thing I want to keep telling myself during marathon is that my time is getting worse. But if we're going to be like completely honest with myself, there's just, unless in the next month I can like really fix something, get my sleep in order, get diet in order, get all of the training and the volume in the right spots, I don't think it's going to be possible to run a sub-3 or a PR marathon in this particular case. Just because, again, my training volume, as you probably saw in the previous Crystal Lake video, I'll even post it here again, has been stagnant. Like, the growth of the waterfall method was not happening. I was not running the 50, 60 miles a week I was trying to eventually run like a 20-mile week as an 80-mile week overall. The distance that I was attempting to run wasn't happening. And the results of that is more or less because, I have a lifestyle change. I work from home now. I have a different job than I had in 2019. I'm not spending nearly as much time on my feet for my job. I live in a different place where there's obviously a little bit less walking, more driving to get to your places. I spend a little more time, on my phone, whether it's like for gaming, work, or things like that. So there's more distractions, I guess you can say. But at the same time, like, it's not so much of this, more of this. So I'm well aware that as I'm getting older and I'm developing more responsibilities for work, whether it's also like professional development, like certifications, studying for other topics, building presentations for work, traveling to conferences, presenting across the world on cybersecurity topics, like, these things do take time out of my running, and running takes time out of those things as well. So it's a relationship that needs to be like tightly wound and deeply understood between everything I'm doing in my life. So it's only fair that as I'm progressing in my career by spending more time in it, if I'm not spending nearly as much time running, that my running would slightly, I guess, deprogress or degress. I guess that's the word we're supposed to use. But I don't want that to necessarily happen, because deep down inside, I believe I could be a superhuman where I can run sub-3 marathon times while working a work-from-home job. And I think for all intents and purposes, that should be totally possible. I should be able to have all of my hobbies and still progress comfortably as a runner that wants to obviously run the sub-3 marathon, who wants to eventually be able to run, a sub-hour 10 half marathon, someone who wants to run a sub-15-minute 5K. Like, all these goals that I have are all completely doable with the right balance in my life. And there's other things that, of course, I would need to fix. Like, diet was something I was talking about. Like, maybe I'll lose a few pounds in my life at this time if I stop, like, eating certain things or drinking sodas or things like that. But also, it's a double-edged sword, because in a lot of sports, this is just like, again, very extreme example. Maybe someone can give me a more down to earth example, but in some Ironman races, like full Ironman races, you would drink Coca-Cola just to get that extra kick of sugar or caffeine into your system. And sometimes you would train using Coca-Cola, or you would use it as something, as a post-workout, or something you would just eat casually with a meal, because your thought process here is, hey, my body can take this because I'm running like 8 to 10 miles a day just in like a training block, which there could be a case made for it. But again, you don't want to get caught up drinking your calories versus consuming better looking calories, like maybe, here's a tough one, like a Chipotle bowl or something like that. I'm not sponsored by Coke or Chipotle. It's just I'm using like examples I can think of right off the rip. So anyways, those are just some of the things I've been thinking of that would help like lose weight if I wanted to run faster, have that morale to continue pushing through the longer runs, just being able to focus on having those longer runs in the first place. So yeah, it just it's not that the focus has necessarily changed in life. I would say that there's just more responsibilities that come in, which is a good problem to have, I think, rather than having nothing going on in your life and then just feeling like you're just kind of lost. Whereas like here, it feels good knowing that I've got all these things I need to do, and running is one of those things outside of work, outside of some other responsibilities I have. And yeah, it's just balancing it all, which is like the ultimate game here. And if you can play this game right, you're going to be successful at a lot of things, and that's just something I'm kind of working through. So I guess I'll relay this back to you guys. Like, if you guys got strategies for life, personal leisure, fitness balance, let me know what you guys do in the comments below if you've gotten to this point in the video. But yeah, this is just kind of like the big recap of what I'm expecting during the Chicago Marathon. And it's likely I will not run a sub-3 this year. I am hopeful every year that I will, because maybe I don't want to rely on miracles, but sometimes miracles do happen. Sometimes just you have the right amount of rest. Sometimes you have the right nutrition. Sometimes you're in the right mindset on race day, and something good can happen, right? Maybe I'll pull a David Goggins, right, where at the start of the race, you're going to be like, well, I'm running with my mama. And then next thing you know, the gun goes off and you're a bullet and you run a Boston qualifier on your first ever official marathon. Like, who knows? But based on the training that I've been doing and my progression all year long, it's going to be tough to beat this, and it's going to be tough to run 2:59:59. But we will see. And then that brings us into a whole new topic, which would be for probably another video for another time, which is going to be talking about how the Chicago Marathon is potentially going to play into my potential Tokyo 2024 marathon, which, tentatively speaking, I am signed up for. You never know what happens as we get closer to the date, whether, life happens and something changes. We don't know, right? But Tokyo is still back on the radar, and if I can run it, I will definitely run it. And if I have to run my sub-3 in Tokyo, so be it. But yeah, let me know if you guys are training for the Chicago Marathon in the comments below, what you think based on your training for this year. Have you run the sub-3 in a miracle setting where you didn't expect to? I don't know, just like give me some thoughts on your marathon, your life balance. Send it my way. I love to see what you guys say. I do read everything if you haven't been aware. Just like sometimes if you respond with something so crazy, I will respond or just love or pin the comments, but that's kind of my thoughts. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going to leave this for now. So thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.